All right, how the United States became an oligarchy. An oligarchy. So, how we transitioned from being a proper representative republic to an oligarchy. Of course, what is an oligarchy? It simply means rule by a small group of people. A small group of people having control of a country or organization or institution. So, the United States, a country, being ruled by a small group of people. What do we mean by that? Well, let's go to this. The Reapportionment Act of 1929, also known as the permanent, that's the key term there, Permanent Apportionment Act of 1929. Permanent method for apportioning a constant 435 seats in the United States House of Representatives. Okay, a constant 435 seats. That was in 1929. So if we just think about this for a minute, here is the original Constitution, or a Constitution, the Constitution of the United States, a transcription. This is from archives.gov, but it's the National Archives. Article 1, Section 1. So we're talking about the legislative powers being given to a Congress of the United States, and that Congress is divided into two bodies, a Senate, okay, and a House of Representatives. So we're going to focus on the House of Representatives because that is our largest body of representation in the United States. If we're going to be called a representative republic, we have to look at the House of Representatives. The Senate is the second largest body, and there are 2 senators for every state. And since 1959, we've had 50 states, but in World War II, we had 48 states. In the Korean conflict, also known as the Forgotten War from 1950 to 53, we had 48 states, not 50, so we had 96 senators. But since 1959, with the admission of Hawaii and Alaska, both in 1959, then we've had 100 senators ever since. So 50 states, 100 senators. But here is the problem: the House of Representatives. Section 2 is going to begin with the House of Representatives specifically. And the House of Representatives are supposed to be broken up into population groups. So, for example, the Constitution says the number of representatives in the House, not the Senate, but the House, shall not exceed one representative for every 30,000 people. So let's do a little math. Just keep it in mind. 1 for every 30,000 people. So all we have to do, if we say there's a Permanent Apportionment Act in 1929, and this has been in force ever since 1929, we've only had 435 seats. I think it did elevate to 437 when Hawaii and Alaska were admitted, but only for a short time, and then it went back to 435. Okay? But in 1929, if you just look up why does Washington, D.C. have electoral votes? Yeah, they shouldn't get any, by the way. Total electoral votes, 538. It's the 435 seats plus the 100 Senate seats. That's 535 plus 3 for Washington, D.C., who shouldn't get any. But it's been 435 since 1929. 1 for every 30,000. Well, let's do the calculations here. All right, let's see here. U.S. population. Okay. U.S. population from 1900. Let's go down to 1929 just to see what the population was in 1929. 121 million people. We'll call it 122 just to make it a round number, because then we're going to go to our calculator. 120. I already did that a little bit ago just to see what my numbers were. Let's go to 122 million. 122,000,000, that's 122 million, divided by the 435 members of the House of Representatives since 1929. That'll give us 1 representative for every how many people? 280,000 people. 1 representative for every 280,000 people. That was 1929 numbers. Remember the Constitution: 1 for every 30,000 people. 280,000 is a lot more than 30,000, isn't it? So already we're moving toward oligarchy, 1929. But what is the US population today? 300, let's say 332 million. So we go to our calculator again. Let's clear this out. 332,000,000. Okay, so the population has grown since 1929. Almost 3 times as many people since 1929, but we still have the same number, 435 representatives. Remember the Constitution, 1 for every 30,000 people. What is it now? It's 1 for every 763,218 people. 1 member for every roughly 763,000 people. That's how you change from being a representative republic to an oligarchy. An oligarchy. I hope that makes sense. I wanted to keep this fairly short, but substantive, I hope. Because that is how we determine the electoral college as well. There are 538 electoral votes for the presidency of the United States, president and vice president. It should be 535, but Washington, D.C. gets 3. It shouldn't get any. People who live there can vote in either a Maryland or Virginia district. They're just absorbed into one of those districts. Washington, D.C., that's the point. Washington, D.C. is not a state. They should not get any electoral votes, but they get 3. So we have 538 electoral votes for the presidency. That should be closer to 6,000. Let's do that calculation real quick. If we had instead of 435 members of the House of Representatives, let's say we had 6,000 members. So again, Permanent Apportionment Act, constant 438. Let's increase to 6,000 and see what kind of representation we get then. So 332 million, boom, boom, boom. Got 6 zeros, yep. Divided by 6,000 instead of 435, which we now have. Oh, look at that. That'd be 1 representative for every 55,000 people. That's much closer to the spirit of the Constitution, 1 for every 30,000. Let's do it like this. Let's say we had 5,500, not 6,000. Let's say we had 5,500. I think that'd be adequate too, 5,500. So let's do 332 million divided by, let's go 5,500 members. Instead of 6,000, let's go down to 5,500. That would be 1 member of the House of Representatives for every 60,000 people. Again, that would be adequate representation. It still wouldn't be the 1 for every 30,000. It's actually double that, 1 for every 60,000. But it's far more representation than we have today, where it's 1 for every 763,000 people. That's ridiculously low. Again, representative republic moving over to an oligarchy. Okay? This is why it's important to understand that the founding fathers had as their example for this new republic that they wanted to establish, the only example they had in history was the Roman Republic, and they all knew how that ended. And we're heading that direction today. Okay? The Roman Republic, the United States of America as a republic, turning into an oligarchy. Same with the ancient Roman Republic turning into an oligarchy. It turned into empire, and of course, with that empire came oligarchy. Rule by fewer and smaller numbers of people, oligarchs. Okay? So that's how the United States has become and is becoming an oligarchy. This is one of the main reasons, at least, is our representative body has been squeezed. There's fewer and fewer of them as population continues to grow. As long as that cap remains intact since 1929, as population grows in the United States, we're going to have less and less representation. because the idea is that your number of representatives grows with your population. It increases with your population. This shouldn't be 435 seats. It should be at least 5,500. Even if you wanted to drop down to 5,000, let's do that. Let's drop down to 5,000. Just I'll do a quick 332,000,000. That's 332 million divided by. Let's just do 5,000. Again, one for every 66,000 members. That's 66,000 citizens. That's not bad. That's better representation than we have today. But again, that 435 has to increase by thousands, and something tells me that's not going to happen anytime soon. So, and until it does, we are in an oligarchy in the United States. Okay, that's all I have for you today. I know I'm rambling a little bit and kind of repeating myself, but I just really want, let me know what you think. Is this disturbing to anyone at all? It's disturbing to me, but I at least have a context in which to place this. The context is right here. Revelation 13, 11 through 17. If you've seen any of my other videos on the United States and Bible prophecy, this is it right here. This is why Bible prophecy matters. God's prophetic word matters. Okay? If you do not understand the identity of the Antichrist, preterists don't understand it, futurists don't understand it. They teach falsehoods, errors, and lies concerning the identity of the Antichrist. All of our Protestant Reformation forefathers knew the identity of the Antichrist. The Westminster Confession of Faith authors knew the identity of the Antichrist. The 1689 Baptist Confession of Faith authors knew the identity of the Antichrist. Jonathan Edwards, Charles Hodge. I have a whole thing on Charles Hodge going through Antichrist. Look, if the Bishop of Rome, or the papacy rather, as a system, an institution, a corporation, as Charles Hodge said, if that's not the Antichrist, then any future Mr. Diabolical who arises would be a small affair compared to the career of the papacy. That's Charles Hodge. I was amening that whole section that I was reading in Hodge's Systematic Theology on the Antichrist. Okay? Then you won't know the Earth Beast and how to detect the identity of this Earth Beast. Well, it's the United States of America. I'll just give it away right there. You know, I don't try to keep knowledge to myself like the Gnostics. Our knowledge is supposed to be promulgated. Knowledge of Scripture, knowledge is supposed to be promulgated. Not kept secret and then, oh, we'll tell you later after you go through certain initiations and all that. No. That's why as a Baptist, we recognize that baptism comes after you know all this stuff. You know all this stuff. Baptism comes as a result of believing the gospel. But all the knowledge is right there. It's not you get baptized and then we give you the knowledge. No. You know, initiation, right? Then you get a knowledge to the next level, then another initiation, then more knowledge. That's not how it works. We promulgate this knowledge all over the place. Right up front. We don't keep it from anybody. Anybody can go to this and read and study through these things and read church history and study through church history. Church history matters. Historical theology matters. We need to know where the church has really made great strides in like the doctrine of the Trinity, right? Christological issues. Look at all the good things the church said about that and had to defend against errors. Arianism, modalism. In the East, it was more of a Sabellian or modalistic type of heresy. But in the West, it was definitely Arianism, right? Modern day Jehovah's Witnesses hold to the Arian heresy in Christology. Okay, it's one of our major arguments with Jehovah's Witnesses is our defense of the Trinity. And because of that, if we are Trinitarians, we are called Catholic. Catholic meaning universal, but specifically Catholic had to do with being a Trinitarian. And so Trinitarianism, the Trinitarian doctrine that the Bible actually teaches, was defended. And then all kinds of issues, soteriological issues. The Reformation came along and really cleared up the doctrine of justification, the false sacerdotal system of papal Rome, all these things. And then, of course, the United States, the colonies at first, was a bastion of a safe haven for Christians of all denominations, right? We're not going to have a state in charge of our religion. We tried that in Europe. It does not work. It never has worked. It doesn't work. In other words, the government stays out of the consciences of how its people will worship God, and if they will worship God or not. If they want to be atheists, they're free to be atheists. No punishment from the government for that. Wasn't so in the time of medieval Europe. Wasn't so in the time of medieval Europe, or even the Protestant Reformation. If you were a Baptist, you might be killed by papal Romans or some of the reformers themselves. Okay? Even if you were of the Puritans of the colonies of the Americas and you were a Baptist, the Puritans might persecute you for being a Baptist. Okay? The Puritans tend to be kind of theocratic bullies at times. They really were. So, love the Puritans and a lot of what they had to say. Other places I say, yeah, but I'm a Baptist. I step back from you. You know, I know enough to know who's who and I know enough to discern as a Baptist when it's not a good idea to be imploring the state to interfere in matters of the conscience. Okay? Matters of the conscience as far as religious worship is concerned. So, as a Baptist, I'm always real skeptical about government intrusion on the first four commandments. The first four. Now, let's look at. I know I'm going off, so if you want to stop the video, it's about the Reapportionment Act. That's what I wanted to make it, but I'm going on a rambling, just thinking about the law of God right here. Let's go to the 1689 Baptist Confession. Reformed Baptist, Calvinistic Baptist, that's what I would be, Calvinistic Baptist. I'm a staunch 5-point Calvinist, for sure. Let's see, of the law of God, Where am I? Law of God right here, of effectual call. Let's go to the law of God. Law of God. God gave to Adam a law of universal obedience. Okay. Let's see. The same law that was first written in the heart of man continued to be a perfect rule of righteousness even after the fall, and was delivered by God upon Mount Sinai in the 10 Commandments, written in 2 tables. Okay. The same law was written in the heart of Adam and Eve, right? In the heart of Adam and Eve. That same law, the Decalogue, the confession is saying here, rightly so, I agree with the confession here, was delivered by God upon Mount Sinai in the 10 Commandments. Okay? In other words, the 10 Commandments preceded the actual writing of the 10 Commandments in the time of Moses. They preceded that. They go all the way back to Adam and Eve. But check it out what it says. The first 4 commandments containing our duty towards God. Now, we do not hold to the papal or Lutheran. Unfortunately, many confessional Lutherans still hold to the false papal division of the 10 Commandments. We don't do that. As Baptists, Presbyterians don't hold to that. They hold to the 4 of, the 4th one being the Sabbath, of course. The 3rd one being the don't take the Lord's name in vain. No other gods before me is the first one. No engraven images is the second one. So that's the first 4 commandments containing our duty towards God. That's where the state has to keep out. That's where we say, as Americans, and we should say this, the state keeps out of it. The first 4 commandments. The state has no say in whether people have, Yahweh as their God or Allah as their God or many Hindu gods or whatever it might be. The state has no say in that. Those are according to the dictates of one's own conscience. Number 2, engraven images. Hey, it's up to the Satanists to go worship and do engraven images type stuff. If they want to do that, the state has no say over that. The magistracy has no say over that. Magistrate. Number 3, taking the Lord's name in vain. As much as we as Christians don't like to hear it or whatever, people still have a right to do it with impunity from the state. They're not punished by the state. Now, typically in civilized society, we don't just start walking around doing curse words all over the place. It's just not what we do in civilized society. But there are certain contexts where, hey, God himself uses some curse words, okay? Some coarse language. But there are appropriate contexts for that. And number 4, the Sabbath. The state has no say on whether somebody keeps the Sabbath or does not keep the Sabbath. State has hands off. The other 6 are duty to man. That's where the state can come in and say, oh, look, we're going to punish people for murdering other people. We're going to punish people for robbery and burglary, stealing from other people. It used to be in many states that they punish people for adultery. So if you're a man and a woman, and the husband goes out on his wife, right, has mistress or whatever, and she files for divorce because of that adulterous relationship, he might have to pay her a lot of money too. Okay? And he committed the adultery, so he committed the offense, so he's at fault. Now, most states, at least my state, Minnesota, it's a no fault state, no fault divorce. If somebody goes and commits adultery, it's not held. It's unaccountability, irresponsibility. It doesn't promote. So, but the state, as far as adultery, does definitely play a role in adultery. All these things. So our duty toward man. The other 6, our duty to man. How about honoring your mother and father, right? Taking care of them if they need when they get older or as they get older, to the best of your ability. I tell my parents, I'm not wiping butts. You're getting bidets if you need. So that's the thing there. So, but I think that's a very good. The first 4 containing our duty towards God. The other 6 our duty to man. That's very important. So with all the theonomists and whatnot out there running around, they can deal with the 6 that deal with our duty toward our fellow man. They can deal with that. But once they start dealing with our duty towards God, the state, hands off. And I say that as a Baptist, okay? We remember our history. We know persecution from even other professing Christian, Bible-believing Christian groups. We know the persecution we can go through. So that is to be avoided. So the state should keep its hands off of any legislation that deals with any of the first 4 commandments. But anyway, so now I'm rambling. I just wanted to get the reapportionment stuff in there, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Soli Deo Gloria.